Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Respect your time. Yeah, we're going till 1. Okay, I'm David Bayne with Pioneer High School, Yolo County ROP.
I'm Crosby with Connect Ed, the California Center for College and Career.
And formerly with
West Contra Costa Unified School District.
And with Richard Grotegut as kind of the spearheading of it, we wrote the class Internet Engineering 1, and we're approved by UCOP. So that's what you're here for, I think. If you're in the wrong place, you're in the wrong place.
Is this for also doing your CCNA 1?
This is the same class with a different name because UCOP liked it. And you'll discover that theme throughout it. UCOP liked it, therefore we called it this. But it's the stuff you're already doing, plus a little bit of writing, and you're good. You're good to go. Didn't have to remove it, oddly enough. But then you'll see how we couched language to make it work. Just kind of as a proof that it did get approved, I'm with Yolo County ROP, which I did deliberately because it makes your life easier, hopefully. Internet Engineering 1 is approved as an interdisciplinary G elective. We'll grab it. High school teachers, violence, it works out.
Right there, or you can go more if you want to. There you go.
Ooh, that's nice. Okay.
Gotta stay awake though. Got a little mood music.
It is a traditional high school class, the way I teach it, an hour for day, 53 minutes a day, 5 days a week, 10 credits, and it is the Intro to Networks curriculum that I teach it under.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me go.
Your intro you do for one complete year?
Yes.
You don't go
I
intro
couldn't.
one.
I couldn't squeeze intro into one semester. It killed my kids to do it in 1 year. So it was a long discussion we had, and there's just too much to fit in my opinion.
Okay. No, intro.
This is the first class. Yes, new.
Well, colleges are doing it in 8 weeks.
Yeah.
High school kids are very different.
So if you're a kid in high school who doesn't know anything about computers, this is the first class. You don't even know your
I would throw them into IT Essentials first because I've had better success doing it that way. But if the kid has no experience in networking, yes, this would be the first class. No, we haven't worked on it yet. Give us a break. No, it's something. It's on my radar. It just
It makes sense because colleges are giving credit for it.
Right.
Exactly as the curriculum in college.
Yeah, and that's why we concentrated on this. Also, UCOP doesn't like articulating 10th grade courses in anything except classes like art, which don't make any sense. And again, UCOP rules. They say they don't want to do a 10th grade class at all, and IT Essentials would traditionally be a 10th grade class. Yeah.
Ninth graders in this class.
Yeah. Ignore what really happens and go with what UC says happens.
Okay.
Yeah, it won't matter on the other end.
All right.
I stopped trying. It's a lot less stress. It is set into 5 units. We took all of the course and divided it. I think there's 11 units in there. We divided it into 5 units for this, and it's just embedded in. It's not a matter of, well, we left this chapter out or we added. No, the chapters are all there in order. We just separated them to 5 sets because it makes some later stuff that you'll see a little later work a little bit better. Internet Engineering 2 has a similar thing. We have applied. I applied on the 31st at 6 in the evening. It was a long Saturday. But it has been applied. Cross your fingers. Last time we applied on the 31st, and we heard at the end of August, and we had to resubmit. So we resubmitted into August and heard back December 20th at 4 p.m. And they gave us the approval, luckily. If you turn in your application from now until I want to say July 1st, but it might be July 30th, you'll have an opportunity to still submit for next fall and have a resubmit as well. So you have some opportunity to get this on your catalog this current school year. The,
That's very common for the UC to reject your initial submission. It doesn't mean that the process is over. You'll get feedback saying we don't understand or you need to add. And so we encourage school districts and schools to try to get submissions in early. Once you do get the approval, it is retroactive to that school year. So even though you get the final approval in December, your kids still get credit if they started in the fall.
it was retro to August for me.
Yeah, but it's iterative. If you get rejected, read the feedback, try to make some improvements based on that feedback, and then go ahead and resubmit. But pay attention to the deadlines.
Are you gonna give us the paper?
Yeah, you'll get everything.
Thank you, but.
I wouldn't give you halfway. I'm not going to do that to you. Okay, Internet Engineering 2 takes the routing and switching essentials. Again, I'm going to teach it over a year. I haven't taught this one yet. I've written it as Internet Engineering 2. I've got it sitting there. I did submit it under Yolo County ROP. And again, it has to do with ROP classes get a type of program status that make it easier to get others approved in every world except yours.
I've got a firewall that's just not letting it through.
Yeah, well, your assistant principal just needs to learn reality, or UCOP reality. We separated this one into 6 units, which I'm going to actually teach as 2 semesters. Local area networks, network security, internet working, wide area, cybersecurity. And the final one we actually added a little to, so it's the network services and also a lot of future looking in this one. By this time the kids are headed to college, and so I actually put in a couple of very forward career looking exercises. You see a little bit of that in the first course, you see a lot of it at the end of this course. And I know the link is somewhere buried in one of the PDFs you'll have access to. The idea that I stole this from the Networking Academy website, the idea is just to put everything together to where it makes sense for kids. The first of the type of assignments we embedded in it, because UCOP likes writing. And they like all kinds of writing because they like writing. Blog and bulletin board entries, something that's really useful. I actually took this screenshot directly from the NetAcad site. A year ago, if I had said, oh yeah, we'll use the embedded blogs in NetAcad, I would never have subjected you to that. But this is one of the things where, and I was part of the beta on the new NetAcad. This was awful. They just fixed this maybe a month ago to where it's actually really well done. You set your query, and you'll see that at the top. I wish I had a laser pointer with me. The query, and then the students can reply, and then can reply to each other as well. That's the intent of the blog and discussion board. They have to give evidence. They have to reply to each other throughout different exercises. You'll have about 2, sometimes 3 of these per major unit. And they're guiding the kids' writing into their major writing assignments. Learning labs are our regular labs. These are the labs that we use, but instead of calling it a lab, we called it a learning lab. UCOP liked that change. But a lot of it is that there's a lot more reading and viewing, some TED Talks, some other video that we embedded into those. And we expanded on the writing. Now, most of that expanded writing, before you panic, is the blog posts. They fit like that because I don't have enough time to do it any other way. Most of these can be on real equipment or Packet Tracer. I really like the new version 6.1 of Packet Tracer because you can do so much more with it even than 6.0. I don't know when they made those changes because a lot of them weren't announced, but it was really nice to see. So that's your learning labs. They will have essays, and is it 1 essay per every 2 units?
There's probably 5 essays. If there's 6 units, there's probably 5 essays, because I think there might be one debate.
Yeah, it's roughly 1 per unit or 1 per every other unit. And these are the same essays they do in their English class, so don't panic when we call it an explanatory or an argumentative or reflective essay. Those are the type of essays that at my school we use ERWC. I don't even remember what that stands for. But yeah, it's the way my English teachers teach writing. You have a similar one. Use whatever terminology is local to you. You use...
In Wisconsin, they use this protocol called literacy
LDC.
Another approach to writing,
It-
college-ready writing.
We talked about it last year. LDC and ERWC are exactly the same thing, use slightly different language. Talk to your English teacher, find out what they do, and use their words. Because that's one of the things that UCOP is going to look for, is that it's using words that are for your local context. If you are partnered, like in an academy model, with another teacher, especially an English teacher, they can help you with this and even do this as some of their required writing. You get to credit it to you. Don't tell UCOP that you're going to let them help. But you would mention in your how you wrote the course that you talked with those teachers about how to do it, and you make sure you mention that you've talked interdisciplinary, use big words, they like big words. But here, these types of essays are embedded, and these types of essays are very common in what we're asking the kids to write elsewhere. So it's the same language that they're hearing in their English classes. They average 1 for every 2 units, 4 to 5 pages in length, and it's based on what they're doing. So their blog posts, their learning labs, their other stuff all lead into their essay. Everything leads into this big culminating essay, yeah. That's what we tell UCOP. The reality is I had a sophomore in it this year. I'll have, he'll be a junior next year. You have had a few freshmen who have made it. And, yeah, but predominantly most of your students are going to be juniors and seniors, because that's who can fit it in their schedules and that's who really can handle it. We'll get to that. Yes, we do, but I will mandate something slightly different than you, perhaps. Skills integration challenges are the skills integration challenges in the curriculum. We pulled them out from the labs because they're such big assignments. Most of them are group assignments, and they're very expansive. But it's the ones we already are used to. They're already in the curriculum. We didn't write any new stuff. We just called it different things. Actually, we just separated it out to reflect the fact that it is a big thing. The skills challenges are really big. We did in these have a team debate. Now, you're going to say, well, I don't have time for a debate. This is just the skills integration challenge, and they talk about their solution. So if you were asked to solve a network problem, another team solved the same problem a different way, team debate is arguing which one's right. There. We can do that because that's not different from what we already do, except putting it in oral form, and some kids are just going to really love this and some are going to hate us for it. But that's true for everything we do. You could debate this as a blog post. We set this, one of the orals is set in lieu of one of the essays. Okay. So how you really decide to do that is up to you, but you do need to realize that that's the decision we made, right, because they want a big thing in every unit. Okay. An essay, or in this case a debate, in other places a mock interview. Sorry? Yeah, a big assignment. Practical is not UCOP's bailiwick. We have case studies. That may be the next slide. Yep, that's the next slide. Yeah, nice lead in there. Case studies are based on Aspire, and Aspire's been embedded into the curriculum, so we all have access to it. Just application of theory, and these are really fun for when you have time to do them, and they're kind of cool. And if you saw my presentation 4 years ago on Aspire, it's the same stuff, but it hasn't aged really well, and I haven't looked to see if it's been updated. But your case studies are based on Aspire, and it'll help walk the kids through that. Yeah, we're talking about the game. You'll know whether they finished it or not because you're their teacher, and don't argue it. Don't tell UCOP. No, reality, they're having to apply it, and I look at the point values, and I look at the laughter in the room and the frustration at the same time. You grade that one kind of holistically. Yeah, there we go. There's a $5 word to use. Then I'm a CTE teacher, I'm ROP, and I make my kids do college and career portfolios, cover letter, job app, resume. I'm a Skills USA advisor, I'm presenting on that tomorrow. I do that for that, ROP makes me do that. All I've added to that is a professional writing sample and a college level writing sample. So the students would take their writing in our course and in another course and embed that into their career portfolio. Uh,
Does this run over the entire course?
Depends on how you do it. I start mine in September and we finish it in April.
So we have a foundation course that will end up being a prerequisite course. It requires all the same things.
And you would want them to give new writing samples and to update their resume, and you're cool. Yeah. But in my world, because it's my world, they have to do a portfolio defense. But we call it portfolio defense. It's a mock interview. That's an ideal real-world portfolio defense. And I call in my workforce development people, and they call in business owners to, for me, Yolo County Work Ready Certificate. The Youth Opportunity Council has that. You probably have something very similar in your area. And I just embedded that and called it a portfolio defense, because that's really what it is. It's just completely practical. And if you want information on how Yolo County does it, I'm happy to share. But that's their portfolio defense. So they write a portfolio, and they've placed stuff in there, and then they have a mock interview to defend that portfolio, because that's really what a mock interview is. It's just a different word for saying the same thing. I think you came up with that term, Ben, because it was just an awesome phrase, defending it. Let's see. Yes?
Are students upon graduation getting employed?
Yes and no. A lot of my students don't get employed right away because they go to 2-year or 4-year schools or some technical schools. Some go directly into the workforce, most not in IT, but most have discovered that their IT skills they use them. I have one kid at Home Depot. A couple of years ago, he came through my program. Home Depot's registers weren't working. I think they were down to 1 working register, and it was November, or it was October, and the manager was saying, this is going to be a problem at Christmas time. And so this kid said, I can fix that, and use the networking and the ITE skills to fix all the registers, to troubleshoot and repair them, because the corporate office wasn't sending anybody to repair them. So yes and no. I send them all sorts of different ways. I've got a couple studying in the Navy nuke program. I've got a couple in the Air Force. One on AWACS planes who's rewiring AWACS planes, and I don't completely understand what he does. We're meeting at the end of the month for coffee. So. Right. A lot of them don't work directly in IT, but that's partially where I am. We don't have a lot of IT, traditional IT in Woodland. We don't have any data centers. We don't have high-tech firms that are traditional high-tech. They'll go to work for Monsanto, but they'll work in the seed division sorting seeds, because at an entry level, that's what you do for Monsanto. But then a year from now, they might transition into doing more inventory work, and they end up in logistics, but they end up in, it turns out they use their IT skills a lot. But that's more the region I'm in.
It seems to me that, I know our district doesn't track that either, and I can't find in any state resources that what kind of articulation rate are we seeing from the ROT courses. We have a lot of resources invested in ROT, but it doesn't seem to me that we're successfully tracking where these kids
Look to your Perkins data, your R1 data. It's in there. Is it R1 or is it P1? You have to be accurate, but that's 6-month data. We don't have year out. We don't have 2-year out data. They're starting to come up with some from the community colleges and the state colleges and universities. They're coming out with the data that can be tracked back to the individual kids, but we're looking at another 5 years before CalPADS is ready for that.
So what's the good guess on the number of percentage of kids that are articulating from high school IT into the workplace in IT or into community college in IT?
I can't predict that. I have no idea. A lot of mine, a lot of mine are headed to college. They go to university, and a lot of them do study engineering or IT fields, but a lot go into mechanical engineering, which is heavily IT centric in today's mechanical engineering programs.
There is a lot of internships out there for high school students. It's hard to find, but there is. And one of my freshmen She's working at Cisco now this summer as an intern, a paid intern.
Wow. And a lot of that depends on your area.
Yeah, I live right.
So, in my case, as well as my colleague Alan, we're at the community college level.
Mm-hmm.
We're working under an initiative under the Chancellor's office to identify entry-level opportunities for community college students. Part of that work then involves working with the local ROPs to identify whether it's teaching, to identify what's articulated, and but our task is finding out what's the quickest that we can get students, particularly in the area that we're in, because more affluent areas, then most of your community college students are going to transfer. Less affluent areas, you're going to have more CPE students. So our interest is finding out what's
Mhm.
the one entry level. So what we're doing right now is working with employers to identify what's the certification that would be the first one that an employer will take, and then we'll get the student placed. And that's something that we're trying to, I have to say that we're trying to change at the community college level, because unfortunately, we have been all over hands-on. We train them, and then we throw them in the pool.
Mm-hmm.
And the sink or swim, right? Because we don't do it.
I don't have answers, but I know who you should ask. You should talk to Richard Grotegut of Ohlone College, and you should talk to Kevin Anderson at Sacramento City College, because they'll have those other answers. I also want to address that you used a word that means something different to you than it does to us, and that's articulation. Articulation, I've been dealing too much with the UC. UC articulation, A through G, means that the class is considered college prep. Articulation from me to my community college, in this case Sac City College, means that my kids get college credit for taking the class.
If they turn in paperwork.
Yeah, there's plenty of ifs there. But the fact that the same word means two diversely different things, and I just wanted to clarify that. But talk to Richard, talk to Kevin, because they do that kind of work now, and they have those answers. And Richard's across the hall giving a presentation, so he's here. You probably know him. Okay, yeah, because they're my experts when I have that question. I don't know those answers, but they're the people I'll ask. And I haven't seen Kevin. I'm not sure he's at this conference. I think he's on the East Coast doing something in security. Okay. Yeah. That's actually an assignment in the second course. LinkedIn is actually the culminating assignment at the very end of the last unit of the second course. So yes, but not till they're seniors and they have half of a clue. As juniors, they really don't have half of the clue. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can't believe that people actually think that way. I mean, LinkedIn's a pretty closed.
Right.
I still refrain from having minors put their stuff out.
That's why I save LinkedIn till the very end of their senior year, because privacy is a big deal, and they're usually 18 by then. They certainly have more of a clue, and it is a closed ecosystem. When they do have to create the other stuff, I try and lock it up, because it is a problem. I don't have an answer. Because in the first semester they have to create a website on Google Google Sites, and for that I use my district's Google login, or the students use their district's Google Apps login to create that, because then it's a part of the closed ecosystem. I totally agree. I don't have answers. Yeah, we're stuck. We don't have a lot of choices. I don't have any answers to privacy.
It might be a very good opportunity to actually teach and create a pseudo profile and create the implications of it as well.
Good point. Doorways is what we call the site where the UC lets us apply. I like to phrase it that way because it's all their world, and there are guides that are really great resources if you know how to read UC approved class language. The course list, you can look for other folks. The online update site is where you will go for your own class. And let's see, this is where we wanted to actually show the class?
Why don't you pull the class up, and I'd like to know, are most of you high school teachers?
Come on, why isn't it coming up?
So, there's a lot going on with high school teachers, with the Common Core, with ideas around college and career readiness, and so I'd like to spend just a few minutes giving some context as to why we made the changes to the standard Cisco curriculum to get it A to G approved, and what were the strategies and thinking that we used to inform us so we could prove to the UC that you could teach Cisco curriculum underneath this college and career readiness framework. So when UC blesses a class with an A to G credit, it means, like David said, that this is preparing kids for college. To prepare kids for college, you've got to do more than just teach them a specific technical skill. You've got to embed in academic research, responding to nonfiction text, collaboration, and some of these higher order thinking skills that are easily drawn out if you push in a lot of academic content into the standard CCNA1 framework. And so that's why you see a lot of blog posts leading up to a culminating essay. Because when the UC looks at college readiness, kids are going to have to read nonfiction text and they're going to have to write. And their writing has to be based in evidence. It's not, here's what I did this summer. It's based on the evidence in X. I make a claim that this is false, and then going through and making a coherent argument. So, David mentioned these different ways to teach academic writing, and that's really a local context issue. And so his advice to reach out to your English teachers at your high schools and say, what is the framework that we're using to teach college-ready writing? And then if you decide you want to submit, you can customize our course to really reflect what you're going to do and work in your context around teaching academic writing.
And in fact, you should. They'll prefer it if you do.
You should. The UC recommended to us that districts that want to apply, they don't want it word for word what's up here. They want you to take a look and even mention that you came to this seminar might be a good strategy, because that indicates you met with the course designers. And then you want to make some customizations that make sense to your local context. Okay, so how you do the writing preparation, how you do supplemental materials, how you do a college and career readiness portfolio. Those might be the little tweaks that you want to make if you're considering taking this course and applying for a G credit for your local district. Okay, so what we're going to do next, I guess before we start, do you guys have any questions around what David and I have shared so far? So the rest of the workshop we were thinking would be around walking through how we designed this course. We're going to also, Dave's also going to show you some of the work that we did for Internet Engineering 2. But just kind of keep these two hats on, that this course is now really framed under this college and career framework. So there's still lots of real Cisco stuff, but there's this layer of academic preparation that's been built into the course in terms of looking at outside resources, a lot of writing, and a lot of academic writing specifically. We, to us in the IT field, technical writing is a form of high-level writing, but technical writing isn't something that the UC is necessarily going to want to hear a lot about, but they are going to look favorably on writing in response to nonfiction text or to original source material.
Which isn't that different.
No, it's not.
The same thing, we just use different words.
Yeah, so just remember, to get the UC to bless a course, they have to see that if a kid takes this course, they're going to be more prepared when they show up as freshmen at UC Davis or at CSU East Bay, because they've been building the academic skills through the context of this technical education framework so that they will be prepared and ready to respond in a highly rigorous college course.
Bob,
Yeah, I wanted to look up on UC. I just wanted to look up the school.
yeah, let me come over there.
Well, that's really changing, and that's been a problem that networking courses have had historically in getting approved. I mean, before working with David, I worked for probably 4 consecutive years to get a course I wrote as part of an Information Technology Academy approved, and that was always one of the issues. But that is really changing. Colleges are looking at creating ICT majors. I don't have the specific list, but Richard does. There's partnerships in the academic world right now addressing and thinking through what would an ICT Bachelor of Science degree look like? What would the course offerings be? So that's it's not there yet. But to make, in my experience, the students that were graduating from my IT Academy at El Cerrito, a lot of them were going into computer science. So although networking and computer science don't have a one-to-one relationship, there's a kind of thinking, systems thinking, that you can make a case for that a curriculum that's technical and is systems oriented does lend itself well to preparing kids to succeed, in those entry-level computer science classes, which then becomes the platform for them to get their degree. But again, I just come back to the field is changing, and Cal States and UCs are thinking through, and I think there's a partnership or a coalition that Richard and maybe even John is involved in around strengthening this pathway, because we know there's a lot of jobs in ICT, right? Not everyone in IT is a computer programmer, and there's a lot of support jobs. There's really high demand for this.
And my community college, Woodland Community, which actually shares a fence line with Pioneer High, I sit on their advisory committee. And we were talking about an AS for AST, Associate of Science for Transfer, which I'd never heard of, but they want their AST in MIS to include networking classes because they see that as being a valid thing, and they also know that I have the facility right next door, so they don't have to build one. We can share facilities under actually an existing agreement with our welding class, of all places to borrow an agreement from. So we're... Yeah, iron. There you go. Okay, you want to? You were doing so well. Okay. This is a mic we're passing around and recording this.
All right, so you're actually looking at the PDF that I think you downloaded from the UCOP site.
Yeah, this is from UCOP of the actual class that I actually submitted, and they said, "Yup, go for it."
It is.
I don't know if you can reach this on Doorways, but you've got access to this PDF already on the website for the conference. And I'll show you that because I've got that up on another screen.
I think we'd be really interested to know if you cannot access this on the Doorways site.
I haven't seen it. They only show sample courses.
Yeah, I see some
Bob, you saw the course.
There's no link here.
Okay.
There's no PDF.
Yeah. So that's kind of frustrating. I mean, as a field, it would be really beneficial for us to be able to see and review other approved courses, wouldn't it? But we're not a part of the UCOP. We are Dave and Ben. Okay. So what is internet engineering about? Well, we're making the claim that it's interdisciplinary within the ICT field, and it walks students through kind of the history of the networking field, the nuts and bolts in terms of protocols that make the internet possible, ideas around access to services, and also notice we threw in college and career preparation for the ICT field. Of course, integrates theory and application and exposes students to media that invites them to consider, how do network engineers think? How do they solve systems problems? How do they build systems? Students have several opportunities to produce college-ready writing, right? This is a big deal, and in your applications, you want to highlight that this is an academic preparation course. It's not just practical labs and hands-on. You can have all that stuff, but you need this layer of academic preparation if you want to get the UC's blessing.
6 pages to this.
You'll see why in a minute. Most of it is lots of blank space because UC's does that.
I think our Word doc, when we designed this collaboratively, I think it was roughly No, I think it was more like 12 to 15 pages of content.
That's, tomorrow is, when we'll show the submission, but you submit electronically onto their website.
Yeah,
And then you spend hours and hours editing in these teeny tiny little boxes.
and there's templates. Dave's
Yeah.
going to cover some templates tomorrow that help in the process. We used either a Google Doc or Microsoft Word to do the designing, but when you upload, you're on the UC Doorways website and you're copy and pasting from your documents to all these field boxes. It's like a web form, basically, that you're dealing with. Okay, Dave, why don't we scroll down a little bit and see if we need to talk about anything else. Okay, so prerequisites, you can decide on your local prerequisites. The context, our context was that this is part of a California Partnership Academy. Dave's program is a CPA program, and he was the one driving the submission. I was not a classroom teacher at this point. I was into a different role. And so you will contextualize this for your local context.
This is where, in your case, you take out the word RP. And
Yeah,
this,
RLP, and then we can just
Yeah.
learn about the Technology Academy.
yeah, put your technology.
Yeah, put the name of your
stuff.
academy in there.
And IB or whatever.
Right.
So whatever is true for you is here. This is you.
Okay, let's go to the next one.
We're just gonna steal yours.
Yeah, you need to change. You need to not take it word for word because they're going to actually look at mine and, oh, you used his class as a template, and if it is word for word, they're going to be upset. Because they told me that because I asked that question Monday when I talked to them.
Did you say the biggest changes were in the introduction part where you have to tailor it?
Yeah, that's what
Yeah, that's where we're at. Absolutely. So the history of the way we developed the course is, it was a partnership between myself, David, Richard Grodegut, and John from Cisco.
And notice we didn't mention John from Cisco because that might have knocked us out of contention. Because you have to be real careful. But it's the key that it's a ROP teacher, a district office representative, a community college collaborative, and you see some other folks, Mission Valley ROP, and here we go. Brad Smith at a UC. If you can pull in a nice name dropping of somebody at a UC, you probably know somebody at a UC.
Okay, let's move on.
You have to customize this for your history as well, how you
Yes.
develop the course.
Yeah, and you could just say, after meeting with course developers and consulting local English and history departments, we developed this course to prepare kids for college and career opportunities within the ICT sector. So, language like that has that UC spin, but is honest. I mean, you're not fibbing, but you are putting that UC lens on it, and they want to know where is this coming from? And if you say, I copy and pasted it, I don't think that you'll get an approval.
It just seems so asinine.
Well, but you know what? You gotta I can't argue against that, but just keep in mind, these credits are of benefit to students.
Exactly.
So if you can convince yourself or a team of folks to jump through the hoops with you, you're going to benefit students in terms of their accumulation of A to G credits.
It just seems like if one school says, if all their schools take it, exactly the same way, everybody benefits.
Yes, we're working on that.
Everybody.
Yeah.
That was another question I
We have
had
more time in
Monday.
the classroom to prepare, do other things that everybody feels.
Yeah.
Okay, so you will be asked to list your textbooks, which is what this little field is about.
This is the online curriculum as a text through Cisco Press, so we just use somewhere the ISBN numbers around.
Yeah, it's
But
at the top.
We just use,
We have
yeah,
a,
there
we
it
have a,
is, the ISBN of the book that is the online curriculum printed out. I don't buy these books.
we have a question over here.
So I'm going back and forth between the school district I teach for and your school district better. And I'm noticing that in our comments, we don't have any Cisco classes, but they say a version of this class may be offered online. Do you say that anywhere?
Oh, no.
Okay.
There's a whole nother set of rules if you offer it online. It can be done. I'm not going there today. I am certified to do it. I have an LEC certification, but I'm not going to teach this one all online. Or more accurately, I'm not going to ask UCOP to approve it as an online class.
But you would use the campus environment? No?
We'll talk after the session.
Yeah, let's push through, try to get to the guts of the course. So this is just the different fields. If you have more than one textbook, you list it there.
These are the lab manual. Again, it's just the labs printed out.
So more textbooks, keep scrolling through.
This was a nice one. It's good to use anyway.
It is good to identify a wide variety of texts and supplemental materials and include video resources you can find, web articles, TED Talks. You can look at ours as for ideas, use some of them. I don't know that it would necessarily be bad to use some of these same sources, but you might find in your work that there's a lot, we probably just scratched the surface of all the available supplements that you could find.
It would probably be a good idea for you to add 2 hours, just so they realize that you did some work and you didn't just steal what somebody else did. Oh, I'm going to use this instead or in addition to.
Not on a previous version
We used, it was network. They had the network bases in the introduction to networks,
Yeah.
and mid-year we switched over. And don't worry, switch over to the correct ISBN.
Okay, so
I didn't want to switch when I did make in August when I made my submission. My resubmit. I didn't want to switch it because that would confuse them.
Yeah.
I didn't want to make it any harder on myself.
So the course purpose starts to sound a little bit repetitive, but it's just another field on the UC website that you have to put in. Why would students be taking this course? And you would want to contextualize that to your local district environment.
It tends to be longer than the other because the other is intended as a catalog description.
And there's also some guides that you can use that are available on the UC website that'll help you understand how your course will be evaluated. I think Dave might be showing those in the session tomorrow.
I can't remember whether I got those later today or I guess those are tomorrow.
Okay, so when you're designing a unit or when you're working through a unit, you typically describe the unit first and you talk about the learning outcomes. Give some context for the evaluator about what this unit is about.
So this will all be the same.
This,
You might want to read through it, and I wouldn't take it whole, but I would take 99% of it. But if some of this stuff doesn't make sense in your particular world, shift it to make sense in your particular world.
or you can, and some other customizations could include which Cisco learning labs, which packet tracer activities you want to do, and some other choices that you have, because there's not everything that's possible is in the course outline. I mean, there's other supplements, other learning labs, other packet tracer activities that you can choose from.
Change it to fit you.
Sure.
But you don't have to change it a lot.
So in Unit 1, they're really exploring ideas around what is the history of networks and how do networks impact society, and then getting a little bit more granular into how do packets actually travel across a network. What is this idea of a network-centric world? And again, the implications to society, the way people work, the way people communicate. Also built in there, it looks like building in the capacity for students to use online technologies to collaborate and learn together. The concept of the network as a platform for the delivery of service. And then there's some language in there about effective collaboration and teamwork to meet goals. Okay, so let's look at some key assignments. So the blog post. The blog post relates to an exploration of not only the Cisco material, but also the supplements. So where, you provide the prompt, how have protocols aided the development of the internet, and then provide examples from Network Basics in Chapter 3 in your reading, and your readings, which that implies your supplemental readings to support your thinking. And it's kind of key, to focus the writing to material. So it's not touchy-feely writing. It's based on this, what can you say, or what did you learn, or what connections can you make? And then you're looping back and saying, you've got to use this evidence to support your thinking. And David touched on this too. the way the blogs are built is each blog is like a mini essay. So you're scaffolding up the student's ability to complete the unit essay by these blog posts. So you want, if you're going to change the blog post, just keep in mind, don't go way off into left or right field. You're building up to this culminating high-stakes essay, which is really something the UC will look favorably upon because that's how most college courses are structured. Right? There's usually a significant, if not multiple significant pieces of writing that end up being the majority of your grade in these college courses. So the second blog post talks about how did the readings change your understanding of the role of the internet on society? And then again, refer to specific sections of the reading. So this is Common Core thinking, this is college preparedness thinking. You've got to be writing in response to text, writing in response to video. Okay, so then we get to the Learning Lab, which is the Cisco Learning Lab 1.1.1.8. Interactive activity, students research and reflect on, so that's a description of that Learning Lab, it looks like. So we can breeze through that.
Learning lab.
Yeah? Oh, another Learning Lab? Okay, thanks. And then the guest speaker panel. So in our world, and Dave and I were both in California Partnership Academies. You're frequently asked, and this is great practice, to bring in experts from the field to help students understand why they're learning what they need to learn and how the pros use this knowledge to solve real-world problems. And so we thought about this guest speaker panel, maybe multiple guest speakers, where you're really exposing students to how do network engineers think, like how do they solve problems, how do they design. Panel discussion with the pros, and possibly even some college professors, right? Bringing in someone from the community college who's teaching an ICT course.
Whoever you can get in.
Yeah. And then after they do the hear the guest panel, there's a writing piece where students reflect on what they've learned. So a reflection piece is still can be high quality academic writing, but they want to be reflecting on an experience and how that changed their understanding of a concept. And here is the culminating essay. So students write a 4 to 5 page argumentative essay. Again, getting that this is unit 1, but this might be like the unit 1. This is the bit, what we used to might call a final exam. In the eyes of the UC, a piece of college-ready writing carries more weight. So, and you might couple that with, there might be a hands-on practical, but you still need this piece of academic work to satisfy what the UC wants to see in terms of college preparation.
I haven't written them. I try and avoid writing 80 lessons.
No, so typically a UCOP course outline is assuming that the lesson plan development happens in a local context. So this isn't like a whole prepackaged course. I mean, I have some lesson plans. I used to have my own lesson plans, but the outline is this high-level document, and the lesson plan work would be done based on what you see here. John?
This is still the Cisco course, but we have to add 50% academics.
But what we sneaked in though is that we already have the writing course. We just rephrased it with bigger words to say, and so this argumentative essay is new, but the blog posts are not new. They're based on a couple of labs. Yeah, they did watch a TED Talk and they read some pages out of another document, but they didn't add a lot. It's not 50% additional material.
No, there had to be that balance.
There has to be
a
the
little more,
balance.
it made it a more balanced course, and it does make it harder to teach sometimes. But again, if you can get your English teacher to actually assign the essay and grade it, you're done. And she can use it as a nice argumentative essay.
So
One thing back to local context, if your English teacher needs to teach and you're in an academy program and your English teacher needs to teach a reflective essay at this point in the year, this becomes your reflective essay. So you can shift these around the type of essay you ask for to meet what the kids are being asked for and just double dip.
Was that a small high school?
No more that I'm a CPA, and so it's a small team. And I fight with my district because I get to fight with my district. And that's kind of
Because
fun.
we have 20 English teachers.
Right.
They're going to be all spread
If you're in an academy model, you don't have that problem as badly, but we've got 12 at my high school, so I get it.
Yeah.
Something else I think about is that so I encounter is students write techniques. So it might be a challenge on the English side of the house, working with the English departments and saying, hey, so we want to get them to avoid writing that kind of style of language, getting it down to the latest terms, common man language, helping them understand technical terms, bring it down from 100,000 foot level to the 5,000 or 500 foot levels accessible. It's a challenge.
All right, I think we should probably move on. We've got quite a few more units to look at. But you're going to see some repetition in the way that the units are structured. Maybe we'll get through this one a little faster.
I like how you broke down the units.
Ah.
1 through 3, unit 1.
I couldn't find that paper this morning. I'll ask Richard to find it. I found it for the second course. I just can't find it for the first course.
Like, you want to know the nuts and bolts of what's where or how those decisions were made?
How you broke down.
Yeah,
what was 11.
thematically. So in collaboration, it was mostly David and Richard talking, and they would say, okay, what are the first 3 chapters kind of fit into this basic concept of introduction to networks or whatever. And then they were able to see, because they're so familiar with the curriculum, that there's themes that connect these chapters pretty easily into larger unit concepts. So that's how we did it.
Well, I'll find exactly which ones go where. I couldn't find it, and I ran out of time packing.
So again, in the beginning of the unit, you're writing sentences to describe what this unit's going to be all about and what some of the learning outcomes are going to be. So Unit 2 is focused on networking protocols. If we could just scroll down a little bit, and then here we have the topics. Key assignments, again, are a combination of the Cisco labs and blog posts. So we have the learning lab, the blog post, then building up to this time it's an explanatory, or the other word, fancy word for that is expository. Those are the same things. Different than an argument. In an expository, you're explaining something. In an argument, you're making a claim or defeating counterclaims. Anyway, standards and protocols, essay, and then again, notice it says be sure to support your position with evidence. Okay, so if you want to change the essays, that's fine. But the way that our success with getting this approved was because we're continually focusing students to build arguments or to write in response to nonfiction source. Okay, if you can keep that in the back of your mind as you're doing your tweaks, you'll be in really good shape.
Evidence becomes a key term.
Absolutely. What's that?
You can pull it off.
Just for the sake, I did this in, so again,
For this, you used our
yes, I
yeah.
used yours.
Okay.
And
Which high school are you?
But I used essential questions as far, and that's.
Great.
Right there.
Now, how did you get access to the course? Because oh, you did. Okay, not through the UCOP site, because apparently that you can't get to this course that way.
No idea that I got to do this.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, through my assistant principal, she had access.
Oh.
So through her, I was able to get in and what I have.
Okay, that's good to know.
Anybody have any questions? Ask me. I did get it. I did formerly CCSE.
It is exciting. All right, Unit 3, concepts around network addressing, OSI model, TCP/IP. What's a network address? How is it used? Ideas around IPv4, IPv6.
Ideas around binary and hex numbering themes.
So then again, after the text description, you have the listing of unit topics, and then going into key assignments. Again, a mix of blog posts in response to readings and supplements and the Cisco Learning Labs. Okay, it's both. And then we should have some kind of culminating assignment at the end, and in this unit, it's the team debate. So rather than an essay for Unit 3, we built in a team debate. And Dave was explaining this to me last night, that the teams are debating what they experienced in the learning labs.
Actually, in the skills integration challenge.
There you go, thank you.
For the skills skills integration challenge becomes their team and the topic for their debate. So it's an oral defense of their, and that was another, we thought about calling it an oral defense, but we decided debate sounded better.
Yeah. You know, and a debate is a perfectly appropriate college readiness piece of work because it involves critical thinking, it involves bringing in evidence to support your position, and these are all things that the UC will it is. This is college ready thinking, and it's in line with what we've been talking about. All right, Unit 4, network access. So we have a brief description of the unit, and then we go into the topics, and then we will see the key assignments, blog posts, and learning labs. Or, yeah, was it a learning lab or a packet tracer? Okay.
But learning labs can have packet tracer or not, depending.
Okay. And then this one, for this unit, it's another essay, and it's based on the supplements. So they viewed a video, and building on, write an essay that pinpoints a problem with Ethernet, and argue for a solution, and support your position with evidence from the text and videos. So I'm sure you're starting to see the theme here. Unit 5, it's a networked world, and I want to be a part of it. So we see.
Richard credit for that title.
Yeah, it's pretty catchy.
Yeah.
So again, we see the pros to describe what this unit is about, which will lead into the unit topics, which are there. And then a case study for a key assignment.
And here's your Aspire activity.
The learning lab, which is around network security threats. And then this is what David was talking about earlier with building in the college and career readiness portfolio. So we put that at the end of the course. It's part of Unit 5.
Even though physically these workshops take place September, October, I think about one in December and January, they are still part of this last culminating unit, even though the actual workshops, and that's the other magic of this. You can teach it in the order that works, but you tell UCOP they're in this order. Just like we can teach the standards out of order if we have to, because it doesn't always make sense otherwise.
You know, let me make a quick comment about standards. So the CTE standards and the Common Core standards, they mean a lot to us if you're a high school teacher, but the CSU, UC, they don't care about our standards. So you can put standards in to your course outline documents, that's fine, but you want to stay away from listing the CTE standards that you think the course addresses, because you're just wasting your time, because the UCOP doesn't care about those. They're looking at the skills and capacities that students need to have to be successful in the next level. So our standards, they shrug at. But this idea of, writing in response to nonfiction text, working collaboratively to solve problems, thinking through a college and career readiness plan. Those are all things that regardless of this, even though they're in our standards, you just don't want to lean too heavily on, the model CTE standards or Common Core for that matter. Okay, then there's the mock interview. David.
You read that standard language in your
Yeah.
content.
We had them. Yeah.
But don't mention this addresses standard XYZ.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure, absolutely, and the thinking, and I remember us having the CTE standards, and we'd refer back and forth for ideas, but we weren't calling out. This addresses CTE.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, and in fact, in the UCOP literature that tells you how to write a course, they tell you, this is not. We do not want to see a list of standards. What they want to see are what are called learning outcomes. Right. Okay. Yeah, objectives, the topics. Okay, and then there's the mock interview process.
They put together, one of their assignments is to put together a portfolio. The second is to defend that in the mock interview.
And a really good practice is to bring in real pros if you can. If you have local businesses or an advisory board, bring in some people outside, and you will see student achievement go up because, hey, I have to present this to someone who's not a teacher, like a real person, and you will find that it's a really valuable teaching and learning strategy.
And as a mock interview, it's not hard to get business partners to come and do that.
And then there's a final blog post, bulletin board discussion that's kind of metacognitive. How did you learn? How did you grow as a learner and problem solver during this course? What strategies did you develop to help you break down the readings, the lab, the lectures, and the course content? How will this help you in a post-high school world? And then refer to specific experiences that you had because you took this course and how that prepared you. And that should be close to the end. Let's see. The other fields in the UCOP template are repetitive. You're pulling things out from the unit outline and placing them. So there's a separate section for key assignments. Even though they're in your outline, you put them again into the key assignments field.
Copy and paste is your friend.
Yeah, and there's as far as we know, there's nothing wrong with copy and pasting content from your unit outline and putting it into these other boxes too. Rock and roll, tweak it. So key assignments is a section. There's nothing new here. This is just. It's a.
I couldn't find the final Word doc.
We have our PDF. The PDF is posted on the conference website. Yeah,
It's just not as friendly.
So
But here
yeah.
we describe the activities a little more in depth. So here's an in-depth discussion of what the blog and bulletin board discussion should be, and you see, and then there's specific ones that are key to the course. Here's what a learning lab is from a nice 5,000-foot view of what we expect of it, and then here's the specific ones that we're considering key.
Also notice that we're relating these activities to where they are in the course. So you don't just want a list of these are all the activities, but you're saying, Unit 4, right? Because they're trying to piece through how does this activity support the content that's presented in this particular unit. So you don't want to skip that alignment or mapping kind of step.
And there is a good bit of verbiage here as to what the kids are going to be doing. So make sure that fits what you want them to be doing.
Yeah, so let's scroll down to the next section, which probably is going to be around.
There's your essays.
So yeah, just helping the readers understand when we say essay, what are we expecting the students to do, the length, if there's going to be a
In fact,
format.
In my case, it's MLA format. You may be different at your school. State that.
APA is another form, but
State one of them. We are going to use this format. You can always change your
I
mind.
would just,
Yeah.
this is my first year teaching, I'm just shocked the kids have never even heard that before.
But you state it there, and that becomes an academic language piece.
Out of curiosity, how often do the UC police come around and check on us?
In 2016, they're scheduled to come to everybody, or start coming. They're going to audit every UC-approved course.
that'll be interesting. I don't know that they've ever done that.
They've never done that. I was talking to, what's her name, the new head of it, Michelle.
I don't know.
Dr. Kwan. And she was saying that she's not quite sure how to do it, but they recognize that it's needed. So these photography classes where 5 pictures a week is all you have to turn in, and you get A through G approval, that's going to go away. Because they're going to sit in every, and make the teachers show everything. That's what they've said. But it's scheduled for 15, 16 school year, I think.
Dave, can you bring us to the next section of the,
Essay, there we go, Skills Integration Challenge.
no, we're still in key assignments. I want to get to the other fields that are, there, scroll up. So another field you have to fill out on the template are the instructional methods and the strategies that you're going to use. So you can take a look at what we did, but this is an area where you'll probably localize it for your context to, how are you going to teach collaboration? How are you going to teach college-ready writing? So what instructional strategies? So are you going to use collaborative group work? Are you going to use direct instruction? Are you going to use a flipped classroom model? Just look, you could do a Google search for instructional strategies if you're not familiar with the language, but how are you going to teach this? And that's what the instructional strategies section is all about. What are you, the instructor?
Frame school. Are you a big whatever?
Yeah. And this is an area where when we submitted first, they wanted us to do more of this. So we got denied, and they said, you've really got to tell us more about this instructional strategies piece. So through email, we collaborated back and forth, and we beefed it up to make it more robust in terms of, I think they specifically asked us, what's the instructor going to do?
Yeah,
And so we had to
that's
think
exactly
about it
right.
and write that in.
So they want to know what we are, that we know what we're doing.
Yeah, so we
And
talk
we
about,
do,
yeah.
So just tell them what you're doing.
So we talked about literacy design collaborative, we talked about think, pair, share, interactive lecture, and we also related that to the different units. So, you know, Unit 3, if the culminating activity is a debate, you might want to do some instructional strategy work around collaborative teamwork, something like that, so that it makes sense for that unit. You know, so you wouldn't want to say we're going to use collaboration as the instructional strategy, but the Unit 4 assessment is an individual and essay. Like, that's a disconnect, right? But, you know, you might draw out breaking down key readings, identifying key vocabulary, doing a pre-reading strategy with students, some of that language for something like an essay or difficult reading. Okay, so let's go see what the next section of the template is. Okay, the next section is called assessment methods. And so here you're writing about how you're going to assess the achievement of students towards the course learning outcomes. In other words, how do you know they learned what they were supposed to learn? How are you going to test it? And this can be a combination of practical exams, multiple choice, short answer, essays, oral presentations, debates.
Tracers, blogs.
But you,
What we're going to study, and how, here's your portfolio, the portfolio defense, everything you're going to do that assesses what the kids learn.
and is that the end of the template? Did we finally make it through?
Yeah.
Okay, click next to submit. Okay,
Feels
John.
good when you do that, doesn't it?
It was real nice.
John has a question, Dave.
What's up, John?
So as an observer and also as part of the process while you guys were offering the information.
Couldn't have done it without you, John.
I get I think we also need to be careful because we want this to be easily replicable and we don't want so much change that's going to backfire, I guess.
Well, let me give an example on adjusting it to the local context. My school is ERWC, Early Reading and Writing for College, I think. is what it stands.
Expository reading. yeah.
Expository, okay. We're a big ERWC school. They've been doing it for years. You use
LDC.
LDC, the Literacy Design Collaborative.
Mm-hmm.
They say the same thing, but if I'm submitting something that has to go to my board or something and they see LDC, they're gonna say, wait a minute, we don't know what this is. They see ERWC, oh, we know that one. And so the localization is more for when you submit yours, you submit LDC. When I submit mine, it's ERWC. It's the simple little things that we're talking about.
But I think John's point is good.
Yeah.
You don't want to go necessarily too far afield.
How far off did you go?
That's what I wanted to
I
know.
go off very, I mean, honestly, I didn't want to copy and paste it, but then I changed it to reflect my district or my campus. Again, I just took your bullets, turned them into essential questions.
Okay.
And then, again, the wording, how I was going to deliver, I think I made some changes. And then I added one piece of curriculum, it's a book that I got on professionalism. That
Great.
has things in there.
Sounds
So
great.
that, and so I applied to the end piece where we start working on the portfolios and so forth. So that was really it.
And did you get approved your first time?
Yeah, first time.
Okay, so that's,
And when you said for approval, did you say this is based on?
Yes.
Okay.
And it was 3 days I got approved.
What did you
Oh,
call it?
wow.
What name did you call it?
Internet industry.
3 days.
3 days, yeah.
So now we have him, we have the Mission Valley ROP, and we have Delaware County.
Did Mission Valley get it? I didn't know. That's great.
Now, you're not ROP or are you ROP?
He is our.
I'm ROP, yeah.
But you shouldn't have any trouble. From what they told me on the phone, it should be the same process, that you're not an ROP shouldn't matter.
maybe just take out the ROP references.
If you take the ROP out, here's the other thing. You do the same stuff.
Other questions?
Ask Bob.
I hear the names of high schools that people are representing in the room. I run Cisco in the western US, and so I'm just curious to see who we have here.
I'm
from Valencia.
And I'm a pioneer.
We're Silicon Valley Career Technical Education now.
Mhm.
Bakersfield. Over the top. Just the other side. Bob, are you still at the skills center? Did you start 80% Monica?
No, I'm still at the skills center, although now they call it a service area, which now we can't.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
That was quick. I'm just looking at like scope and sequence. I know you guys don't have lesson plans, but an example of a week. The thing is, my class is 3 hours long. I don't have it. That's so. You say that you're teaching for a year. Is that
You have 3 hours long, how long?
Monday to Friday?
For 36 weeks?
Yeah. Well, 12.
180 hours?
180 days.
So
180
this is my
days
second year
times
teaching.
3 hours.
Yeah, that's
I
fine.
would say that you should be running, are they getting 10 or 15 units for that course? Yeah.
For CCOC, it's 15.
Yeah, I would say that in your case, you've got at least, you're going to cover at least Internet Engineering 1 and 2 in a year.
And so I also teach IT Essentials, so I was thinking IT
You might be able to
Essentials
fit them
first.
all in 1 year.
So yeah,
A third,
so
a
IT
third, a
Essentials
third.
one
It's
semester.
gonna, I don't, it's gonna be pushing it, but with the quantity of time you've got,
That's the thing. I've always, again, this is my second year teaching, and
although you've only got 15 units and that,
No, this PDF.
no, you've got 30.
30 in a year.
You have
On the
30 to
conference
yourself,
website?
right? I was paying, I'm just not, my brain's not.
Good luck.
So yeah,
I think, you know, too bad your AP isn't more supportive.
You could fit it
Well,
in
he
a
wants
year,
it
you'd
easy
be
approved,
pushing
but
it.
he says once he
I
finds
wouldn't do
RP, like,
IT
we can't do
Essentials
RP.
then
Like,
Ooh, just
one.
so I'll just change it.
highlight,
Especially
delete.
1 and 2 go better than IT.
Thanks, you guys.
Essentials,
Thanks for
then
coming.
Yeah, but if he's doing all 3, he can do IT Essentials in the first, well, no, in the first third. First third is all the first 12 weeks of school. And then your second 12 weeks, 12 weeks are on in your last 12 weeks. Right?
Yeah, because routing and switching is way harder.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't taught routing and switching yet. I haven't taught level 2 yet.
Bob, you're upstairs.
But you did Discovery too.
Yeah, which was a pain.
Wow.
Just a lot there.
Are you online or is this
It's-
I'm online.
This is from the,
This is a PDF, but I have my machine online. What's your question, Bob?
you said what, how do I get the PDF?
It's on the conference website. Let me pull that up.
Oh, it's a little lost. Or not really.
Okay, come on. Where am I? Do you recommend? Say again?
Do you recommend ethics and a kid to
sure.
Ethics are critical.
So that almost sounds like it's gonna be one part of the class or class of one.
I debated including it as a unit, and I may go back and include an ethics unit. I don't.
It seems like a lot of stuff that we are teaching can be used for good, but also can be
Yeah,
used.
and that's very true. And a lot of my kids got in trouble for that this year. If you come to, Bob, I'm here on the conference website. Here's today, here's the workshop you just watched, and here's the 2 courses.
So, if I may actually ask, what were the landmines to look at? Like, how that's it?
Yeah. That's what they probably did some other things, but overall, they.
I mean, as long as it's not like triple X.
Yeah, I've had that in the past.
Ben, thank you. Ben, outstanding, good work.
Oh, it's all day.
A pat in the back, you might even get another Diet Coke out of this or an adult beverage. But I have my book tomorrow, so.
Well, you know, it does feel good that we finally got one.
Yeah. I mean, I had my virtual enterprise and I had to write it up to get it approved, and so it was a pain, but just cut and paste too from RP, so this, you guys already did the work.
Yeah, you know, I tried 4 years in a row
who's changed, it wasn't you. It was
You
them.
know what, my course submissions did become much stronger, but the lessons around what they didn't like had to sink into me, because I was like, this is
Yeah, it's
smart,
the-
this is, yeah. But, over time,